Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Stories Inc. LinkedIn Learning session. My name is Bernadette Van Giesen, and I'm your host. I have a little bit of a froggy throat here, so sorry about that. But welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you are new here, Stories Inc. is an employer brand content agency that specializes in employee storytelling. And we like to host these learning sessions here on LinkedIn to share actionable insights for creating effective employee storytelling content. So before we jump into today's topic, I also want to plug a fantastic webinar that we are hosting next week with Jamia Belton from Sodexo. She'll be joining us to discuss how to activate your EVP internally. We'll link to the session to sign up in the comments if you'd like to join us. It's going to be a really good one. So all that aside, today we have a really great topic to discuss, and we are talking about how to create effective company culture videos. And joining us to talk about this is Taylor Howard, a content strategist here at Stories Inc. Hey, Taylor.
Hey, Bernadette, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Can you take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, my name is Taylor Howard, and I am a content strategist here at Stories Inc. And what that looks like is I'm the one that's boots on the ground. I'm the one that's interviewing you all's amazing storytellers. And then I translate that, whether it's visual in videos or whether it's blog postings, graphics. That's essentially what I do on the day to day.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's definitely start to finish of like prepping for the interview days, uncovering the stories, and then through to that post production, which I know we're going to kind of touch on all those different pieces today. Yeah, awesome. So today we're talking about company culture videos, which are a really effective way to give candidates insight into what it's like to work at your company before even potentially they get to the interview. So they're watching this video to learn about your company culture. Of course, there are a lot of different ways you can approach this video, but for the sake of our conversation today, we're going to focus on kind of that classic culture video, which is a compilation. We're featuring multiple employees talking about what it's like to work at your company. So these are super important because they're often the first video a candidate sees when they're researching your company. So it's a really great way. It's really important to make sure you're getting that messaging right to make that strong first impression. So, but the fact of the matter is these videos, as you know, Taylor, can be really hard to get right. Like it's like you're really trying to thread a needle a lot of times on your messaging. So before we kind of jump into what to do, can you kind of outline for us what are some common mistakes that you see being made with company culture videos?
Yeah, and to your point, you do wanna get it right, and so some of the common pitfalls, excuse me, that we face is, 1, the length, and I think culture videos tend to be a little longer, and in fact, we have to recognize that attention spans are shorter than ever, and so it is a lot harder to hold attention for 2 to 3 minutes than it is for 30 seconds, right? I also think about trying to do too much. There can be a lot of pressure when you're trying to cram everything into your culture into one video. And to your point, Bernadette, you're really trying to make this first impression for candidates. So I understand you wanting to do too much, but when your video does try to do too much, you often fail to build emotional connection with your audience. And then I would say, lastly, jargon. There's so much jargon in these cultural videos. You hear a lot of, we are a family and our culture is innovative. And while that's great, without that being backed up by real examples, that can give, it can fail to give the clients, the prospective candidates, what they're actually looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I know kind of some tips for making sure that we're featuring that story are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today.
Mhm.
Awesome. So now that we kind of know what not to do or what kind of like pitfalls to look out for, how do you approach these company culture videos? And I know a lot of the work starts even before you get in front of the camera.
Yeah, a lot of work comes from the pre-production before the interview itself. And I think the main thing is to define the objective of why you're even creating this video, clearly establishing what you want to achieve. And this could be brand awareness. Are you correcting a misconception? Are you trying to get your name out there? It could also be internal focus. Are you trying to rally the employees around a new EVP, or are you revamping? Second off, we like to identify key themes. We don't want to fall into going back to that doing too much trap. And it's a good idea to think through in advance what types of cultural themes your company that are in your company and which ones are most important to include in your video. And this often really does guide the types of questions you ask and where you want to focus on your interview. I also think about another client who did this really well, a manufacturing company. They really wanted to focus on several themes, but we really honed in. And after we thought about it, the important one was sustainability and why people have a lot of longevity within the culture. And a lot of that falls into their career development. So those are the things that I often think about before the interview.
Yeah, no, I think those are two really important points to make, and, like, they complement each other, but they are different. So, like,
You are
when you think about what your objective is, like, as the marketing brain, like, a lot of times your objective is kind of what your call to action is at the end. Like, if it's like, "Learn more about us," it's more brand awareness, education, but if you're in that maybe more, like, tactical, like, we're trying to differentiate from a competitor, we're trying to, like, capture interest, maybe it's more like, "Apply now, visit our career site." So yeah, so like defining your objective, what do you want your audience to do? And then, of course, all of your cultural themes are important, but like really asking yourself which ones are most important and which one is going to help me reach that goal. So I don't know what the objective was for this manufacturing company, but I could see sustainability maybe being like a differentiator from the competition of them saying like, this is a competitive talent category. They have a lot of options. They're very sought after. So a reason why they might choose us is because we're a really sustainable organization. Potential.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right on the money with that. And after we have all the pre-production, we have to go right into the interview. And my motto is your video is only good as your interview, right? So when you're coming up with your culture video, you really want to make sure that you're set up for success. And you don't want to be left with a story without a strong statement to wrap it up, or vice versa. And so I think about the interview with the end game in mind. So I almost say like I'm kind of editing as I'm interviewing, and I love to ask storytellers to repeat stories. And it's not because I didn't like what they said, but we just want to make sure we're having the most content as possible. And then we want to make sure we're closing the loop, asking, what are your biggest takeaways from that experience? And can you give me an example of that? Like really trying to hone in on that story to push past the jargon.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight that's like two really good questions that you can ask there. So if someone tells a really good story and that story is like kind of standing alone, asking what are your biggest takeaways from that, they're going to connect that story back to innovation or mentorship or like whatever that kind of like culture theme is. And then on the flip side, if someone talks about like, oh, I've had a really great mentorship experience at this company, asking me like, great, can you give me an example of what that looks like? So it's like you got that statement, but then you want to like support it with the tangible example.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then it really makes a more compelling video and story that we capture from it. And then once we do that, once we have that compelling interview, we move on to the post production process. And the first thing I love to do is theme. Oftentimes, we interview multiple storytellers throughout the day, and we capture a boatload of themes. And so I try to make sure I categorize the themes with the specific categories and with the specific storytellers that are telling that. And then we can even tell our clients, hey, this doesn't have to make it into the culture video, but we can put this in a separate video. Um, Next, we want to make sure that we are not that we are overthinking our opener. And how do we decide that? I like to say either a very strong story at the very beginning that really evokes that connection with the prospective candidate, or we have a powerful statement. And I do want to read one of the statements that one of we what I use for one of our clients. So they started off with this: directly or indirectly, you have been in contact with us somewhere. From it be your HVAC system, the airplane that you're flying in, the car that you're driving in, or be a doctor's appointment. There's a lot of tools and equipment that are powered by our company. That's very specific, not a lot of jargon, and you know exactly what this video is going to be about. Um,
Yeah, just to kind of like back up a little bit, the importance of that opener, that it's like you want to make sure you're capturing attention immediately when someone is watching your video. Because as you mentioned earlier, like those attention spans are really short. So it's like either a story that's gonna like build that emotional attachment immediately, or if you're not gonna start with a story, just making sure you're not starting with something generic like I love working here, this is a great place to work, that someone could say about anywhere, but it's like a statement that educates, like that great example that you gave, that they kind of captures attention. It describes exactly what the company does, and it says like you might not know our name, but you know us, like you've like interacted with us. So it's like that kind of is something specific that will capture that attention early on.
Absolutely, and it really speaks to the impact that that specific company, does on the day-to-day, so I totally agree with what you were saying, and then from there, when I'm scripting, I try to really make it a smooth ride for my audience. I want it to be I want it to flow well, and I want it to be easier for the viewers to follow along, and while there may be the outliers or the some exceptions, I really try to start with a statement, a story, another statement, another story. I think that's a good flow to strive for when you are scripting.
Yeah, and I feel like I could, like, picture that in terms of, like, the videos that I know you've made and stuff, that it's, like, something about the company, what that actually looks like. There's something else about the company, here's what that actually looks like. That it, like, it keeps the attention going throughout, and it's also very easy for an audience member to follow kind of, like, what the ride for backable for, like you said, a smooth ride, like, they're along for it every step of the way, and they're not getting lost.
Exactly. And there's other ways to also make sure that the viewers are still going along for that ride, and that's to incorporate graphics. And I love incorporating graphics, and I've been seeing it more and more with our videos, which have been really awesome. And they can add a lot of insight about working at your company without having to take too much airtime, right? We want to keep having that digestible content in mind, keeping in that sweet spot to 1 to 3 minutes. And it's great for transitioning between topics if you're trying to include multiple themes in your videos.
So, like, if a company has 3 pillars in their EVP and you wanna hit each pillar, you can have, like, a transition graphic between each part of the video that's talking about it.
Absolutely, and that really does, push the video forward.
Yeah.
And while we're still talking about visuals and graphics, you wanna make sure that engaging B-roll footage really does raise the bar and can draw the audience in, and storyteller photos are also very great to get, on the post-production as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, so it's, like, focusing on those visuals, like, I guess, like, don't think of B-roll as an afterthought kinda thing, like, when you're on site, that it's not like, "Oh, like, let's just get some B-roll." It's like, "What are we talking about in the video? What do we wanna show?" And really making that an add to the video instead of just, like, something that you have to do. Um,
Absolutely.
and then, like, I love the tip to use photos too. I think especially sometimes with these culture stories, that if someone is referencing a specific event or like a relationship they formed, that having a photo of them and their mentor, or having like a photo from that ERG learning event or something like that, can just be like a really powerful way to show exactly what they're talking about. It's like I love incorporating those photos.
Exactly. I like to say, "See it, say it." So whatever, people are saying in the interview, you wanna see it as well. So, I'm totally, in agreement with that. You wanna make
Yeah.
sure you have that.
Okay, so something else I really wanted to ask your opinion on, and I know we've talked a little bit about like stay on topic, stay like defined focus. How do you keep these videos tight? And like I know sometimes when you are scripting, you're creating a video, like they're just, you know that there's like extra length somewhere, but you just don't really know where to trim it. So it's like, do you have any advice for people as they're looking to script it, of how they can keep the videos as succinct and flowing as possible?
Yeah, I think about removing the fluff. I love to read my scripts out loud, and sometimes when I'm reading out loud, I realize, like, "Wait, I don't actually think that's necessary to put in there." Yeah, sometimes reading it versus reading it and then reading it out loud is a completely different, way to go about
Experience.
it. Exactly, it's a very different experience, and then I also make sure I'm not delivering the same message twice. It's a good thing that a lot of the storytellers are saying the same thing because that means that you are walking the walk, but if someone already said that at the beginning of the video, there's no need to add it twice, so that's another good way to, remove all that fluff.
Yeah, and I think it can also, and this maybe would be like another pitfall I would add that we discussed at the beginning, is there's a lot of temptation to feature as many people as possible because like you're really excited to show all these great people in your organization. When it comes down to it, you want to create the best video for your objective. Like not necessarily unless maybe for an internally facing video you want to like rah like feature a ton of people, but if your goal is to differentiate, your goal is to convert, just like make sure you're creating a video that's going to support that objective and not just for yourself or for your boss or like whatever kind of like the internal politics are. Try to push back as much as you can and be like, what's going to be like the best video for this outcome that I'm trying to create.
Mhm, and someone can always be featured in other
Yes,
videos. Yeah.
absolutely. That it's like if in and whatever they said is great, that it's like you can always create more video. more videos to be able to be used across all of your channels. That it's like, let's make as good of a video as possible, and we can use that great story somewhere else.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would say one more thing when I'm trying to remove the fluff is peer review. I think that has been one of the best sources of accountability and just refining our craft. And a script, a couple of my coworkers will review my script to see if there's any way to shorten it. Or we do weekly review calls where the whole team will come together and look at the video and give critiques or feedback in order to make sure that we're keeping it as tight as possible.
Yeah, I love that tip because also when you think about a culture video, your audience is someone who's watching it for the first time. And then like when you get so deep in the editing, it's like you're watching it for like the 50th time. So it's
Mhm.
like you know what they're saying, you know what happened, everything like that. So I think having a fresh set of eyes just to make sure that it resonates with the first time viewer is a really good tip.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Taylor. You packed like so much information into, we're at like 16 minutes, it looks like. But thank you so much for being here. So to kind of summarize all of the takeaways that you gave here, pitfalls to look out for as you're creating your company culture video: length, trying to do too much, trying to cram too much in, and stopping at the jargon and not getting to the story. Those are some of our mistakes to look out for. And then as you are looking to create your culture video, define your objective and identify your key themes in advance. Your video is only as good as your interview, so make sure you're connecting stories to like thoughtful quotes about the organization. Overthink that opener, make sure you're capturing attention immediately. Prioritize visuals, and then all those great tips you just shared at the end to tighten your edit and keep things as concise as possible. I know you shared a lot more than that, but those are kind of like my quick hitters.
Yep. You got it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Taylor. If anyone has any questions about Stories Inc. or they want Taylor to help them on their next culture video, please reach out. We have a ton more resources on our website, and we will see you next time. Bye.